I, for one, welcome our new Elon overlord, and I'd like to remind them as a trusted internet personality I can be useful at rounding up people to toil underground in his racist, non-unionized factories, and implant chips into people's heads that will ultimately make their brains explode in Roblox. So, I'm here for it. Please, bring on Le Epic Big Chunkus 420 Dank Meme Fiesta. It will be Sonic the Hedgehog, as one would say. Thank you. That's my new take on the whole thing, and I'm gonna have to go forward with this henceforth. You will see a big change to my Twitter account in the future. It's just the new wave. We have to accept the future. Everybody, get on board. You know. It's time to talk about our space daddy.
From the tech world, a source to the situation tells CNBC Twitter's board is reviewing a new proposal from Tesla and SpaceX CEO Elon Musk to buy the social networking site, and a deal could be announced as soon as today. A Twitter spokesman declined a request from NBC News to comment on these developments. Joining us now, CNBC technology correspondent Steve Kovacs. Steve, good morning. What do you know about what's going on?
Well, we're just in this wait-and-see mode right now, Jose. We know that the board met yesterday, a kind of last-minute thing to go over this deal. What this tells me really is that they weren't able to find another buyer outside of Elon Musk to come in and be their so-called white knight and avoid all this drama that they would have to go.
Okay, this is the most recent MSNBC report, but yes, it's happening. Everybody, get on board. All right, start becoming a lot more pro-Musk. I'm doing my part. Are you? I'm pro-Musking.
Through with Elon Musk buying the company, and now they really have to look at the offer and say, okay, this is good for our shareholders, this is going to be good for the company, people are going to make money on this deal, and we have to seriously consider it now. So we're just in this kind of wait and see mode to see if it actually goes through, and it could happen any minute now, Jose.
And Steve, I mean, these are some big numbers being thrown around, right?
Yeah, right now the offer is in the $46 billion range from Elon Musk. He's financing that both with his own personal fortune. Let's call it about 2/3 of it is going to be just straight out of his pocket. And then he has a bunch of financing partners to help him buy it. And then the question becomes...
Well, Chelsea is playing with fire here. If our Twitter bid succeeds, we will defeat the spam bots or die trying. A billionaire occupying your mind rent-free. Occupying a billionaire's mind rent-free. Oh my. Uh-oh. I mean, the good news is I don't think it's even a remotely potential ratio, so we don't have to worry about Musk getting all big chungus over this one. But, oh yeah, dancing near the sun there.
What does it look like if this goes through and gets approved by the board? What does Twitter look like under Elon Musk? And people are pointing to his past comments on free speech, and of course the big Trump question: do they reinstate him on the platform?
Correct. Thank you very much for being with us. We'll find out today, maybe, huh?
I would guess yes. The answer will be yes. I would assume so. Let's see what Glenn has to say about this.
This is why I think it's important. This episode is he's proposing a lot of changes, almost all of which are uncontroversial. Things like getting rid of bots, of making the verification process easier, providing an edit button. The one proposal that he is...
The edit button is incredibly controversial. It's been brought up numerous times. There's a lot of things that would happen, especially if people are quote tweeting other people, and then the statements that they've quote tweeted have completely changed in the process. That's a huge thing that no one's really wrapped their head around. Don't get me wrong, I've kind of wanted an edit button. I'm not even on the other side of that argument, but it's not one that's simply been like, oh, everyone's just been like, oh, joy. I think Musk devotees are pretty much ready for anything that he's going to propose. And lest we forget, he's just done amazing things to every single company or concept that he's come on board with.
So controversial, and that has generated all of this upset and outrage among the media class is he wants...
I think the edit button should be like a 30-second window. That would make more sense if you had a time frame. If you were like, yes, the edit button exists, but you have a minute or two to do it, and then that statement then becomes the statement itself.
To make free speech values more predominant, to erode and roll back what has become a very aggressive censorship regime where the range of views that you're permitted to express is constantly contracting. And it is bizarre to me, Howie, that journalists who traditionally have prided ourselves on being the defenders, the frontline defenders of free speech and press freedom values, now, at least in many sectors, seem to be the leading crusaders in favor of more censorship, of silencing dissident voices, of silencing and deplatforming their competitors. And clearly, the horror about Elon Musk taking over Twitter, a platform most important to media elites, as we just said, is all about the fact that they rely on the heavy censorship hand for managing the discourse and for getting rid of rivals.
Well, there's no question that most of that is aimed at conservatives, and I have no doubt that if Musk does succeed, that he would lift the ban on Donald Trump, for example. But what you call censorship, many journalists will say, well, look, we fear that Musk is going to ease up on the regulation. And by the way, Musk doesn't say he'll have no content moderation against hate speech, against bullying, and against misinformation, although misinformation obviously can be debatable as to what constitutes misinformation.
Well, I think it's a crucial point, though, is, the people who say that they want to regulate social media to eliminate disinformation are the same people who spread the Steele dossier. They're the same people who told the country falsely 2 weeks before the election that the Hunter Biden emails were the byproduct of Russian disinformation. Over and over, these are the same people who propagated so many frauds in the name of their partisan agenda. What is hate speech? What is disinformation? These are very elastic terms, highly susceptible to abuse. And I think the core value of the First Amendment should apply here, which is we let the public decide. You give the information to the public, have a clash of ideas, and the truth will prevail.
All right.
Oh, as in like it's the marketplace of ideas, which is essentially what Twitter is going to be, and then the highest level ideas will rise to the top, and so it's really upon the public to determine whether or not something is good or bad based on, likes, retweets, numbers, hearts appearing on the screen, stuff like that. I said it before that it doesn't really change the broader problem that's going on in this case. People like Glenn Greenwald, who espouse to care about free speech and talk about it all the time, they only really care about team sports. To them, it's just really cool that instead of one group of, say, Saudi-led billionaires who currently own Twitter, and we're very hands-off, I suppose, in their ownership approach, we have someone else who's coming in who's a different billionaire. But in this case, and I guess in Glenn's case, he's hoping he will be a benevolent billionaire. And this billionaire in question will really align politically with Glenn Greenwald in a lot of ways. I mean, he's a pro Babylon Bee over the onion kind of a guy. That should probably tell you a lot there. And he will turn this platform into epic big chungus dank memes, which is what we've all been waiting for after all this. But the larger problem of what does it mean when we have these corporate dictatorships led by a very small amount of people who are beholden to their shareholders and to maintain and increase shareholder value when they are the arbiters of speech itself. Now, it's wonderful that Glenn thinks that the best ideas will rise to the top, and if we just put out every single idea, that's all that matters. The problem when it comes to the complete free speech or free speech absolutist debate, especially in relation to social media, is again, if we wanted to say that this is a completely 100% free speech platform, then it's going to fill up with some pretty horrifying things, such as illegal things, child pornography, for example, as well as, and that should be a banned thing, by the way, as well as a lot of hate speech and Nazis. Now, the idea that hate speech is kind of undefinable or elastic, as Glenn is putting, usually benefits people who are looking to promote and or use hate speech. He has, in the past, been a lawyer for some rather hate speechy type characters, and the idea that every single person should have a right to say whatever they want, even if it's a Nazi, and even if it's Nazi calling for violence or death of a protected group or something, that's still within their right, and we as good citizens have a right to push back against that Nazi and say, no, that's a bad idea, we don't like you. And then because obviously we have the better ideas, we'll rise to the top. It also ignores the concept that the freedom of speech of one person can sometimes limit the freedom of speech of other people. And in the case of, say, people who are calling for the deaths of others or calling for the marginalization of others, or others who are using hate speech as a way of targeting protected groups like trans people, those can have very real-world effects, especially when thousands and thousands of accounts are trying to attack en masse other accounts simply for existing by virtue of being trans on this platform. It's been a long-standing problem, and unfortunately, by the history of Elon Musk's tweets about trans people or the trans community, it would seem that he's not exactly what one would call an ally, or even ally adjacent, or even ally curious. I don't think he's even ally curious. In fact, I think he's pretty decidedly situated himself where he wants to be in this discourse or in this part of history. Glem also went on bad faith. It's long. I don't want to watch the full 30 minutes, but I did want to get a soupçon, if you will.
I might say that I have little respect for Taylor Lorenz's journalism, which is the case, but I've got to give her the credit that, she didn't get to the New York Times and the Washington Post because she won the lottery. She did it because she developed a certain kind of style of doing work that was distinct and unique, which is why people talk about her, because she's doing something different.
Do you think it's the style of work, or is it the idea that,
This seems interesting. Okay, sorry, I'll interrupt this. There are plenty of models for where this site is likely headed. I'm on those sites all day. I cover extremism and lies for a living. You're not going to like it. Other than being filled with death threats, racial slurs, and fake receipts for Play-Doh that actually produce napalm, the sites are simply unusable from a basic user experience level. Admins get bored of running a hell site filled with garbage and let the bad stuff dominate. There are plenty of ways this could work out fine. Pushing through beta stuff in the backlog, like an edit button, might make the site jankier right away, but better in the long run. But it's not going to be a public company, so this makes decisions and data less transparent. For example, what if we lean on maximizing profit above all costs? That means more ads, yes, more paid features, but another fast way to make money is a user base that's big and young and to sell user info to data brokers. Wouldn't be a ton of oversight on that now. Twitter, as it stands, pulls down botnets that used to make the site very bad. They still exist, trying to hawk NFTs, but to a much lesser extent. What if this very expensive investment needs a shiny new growth of numbers just so Twitter stops doing that? Not impossible. Anyways, there's more play here than just will Donald Trump be allowed back on here? Who knows? Maybe, probably. Something Ben's not mentioning in this thread, by the way, is that something else that is going to be seen as more profitable for a company is if they train their algorithms to continue to promote incendiary content, which we now know from Facebook was part of the plan. They know, and well, they knew, and went forward with it anyway, thanks to a whistleblower exposing this, that more incendiary content on the site, more conspiratorial content on the site, gets people more engaged and interacting more. So as long as people are using Facebook more, they're using Twitter more, they're angrier, they're spreading QAnon conspiracy theories, the end results don't matter as much to Facebook as the net number increase, which is also pretty horrifying.
Not a lot of people were covering the kind of new tech, new social media sectors that she was covering. She was relatively young, probably for her cohort of
She's
reporters.
not that young, but
no, well, first of all, Glenn, she's younger than me. No, I think she's about
no,
that.
I know, but I'm just saying it's like there's this whole sense that first of all, no one knows her age, so it's kind of a mystery. It doesn't really matter, except that like one of the things her defenders do that does actually bother me a lot, and
they act like she's like childlike.
They say like, why are you bullying this young woman as though she's like 16?
No, she's about 36. She's about my age,
or more, depending on how you count. But like, so let me just kind of dig into this a little for a minute. First,
that is so weird. It's weird to be like, oh, her age doesn't matter, but let's speculate wildly on her age. Let's go there.
First of all, Taylor Lorenz wrote for the #1 most influential news outlet in the West by far, without any doubt, which was the New York Times. And she didn't just write for them. She was publishing routinely on the front page of that newspaper. In and of itself, that makes her a very valid, and not just valid, but necessary object of discussion, critique, and analysis, because the influence that she's wielding as a result of that position is greater than the vast, vast majority of people in media. And now she's at the Washington Post, a slightly less influential paper, but probably the second most influential paper after the Wall Street Journal, third most. So the position that she occupies by its nature renders her work important and influential.
He's still pushing this lie. Not what he's saying. That's all factually correct. But the idea that the Libs of TikTok account should be remain anonymous simply because it's simply a Twitter account. Like most Twitter accounts can be anonymous. Why does this one have to be made public? And, obscuring the fact that it was actually the Libs of TikTok founder who outed herself by making her name public in a public domain registry. The Libs of TikTok is amplified by some of the largest the largest podcast, if Joe Rogan is talking about it and using it, but also appearing multiple times on Tucker Carlson, the #1 rated news show above all others on TV. So it's not as if the Libs of TikTok is some indie account that never had any kind of corporate backing. Fox News multiple times has done specials on it. Also brought Glenn Greenwald on to regurgitate these same talking points.
And worthy of discussion. I think one of the reasons she's become such a lightning rod is actually similar to why that Libs of TikTok account that she felt compelled to unmask has also become such a lightning rod, why it has such an impact. Libs of TikTok, what it does is it curates videos that are published into the public domain by cultural leftists who typically are a little bit further along on the trajectory of the spectrum of conventional left liberal views on culture war issues, like on gender identity and trans issues and sexual orientation issues. And what it does is it kind of vividly enables you to see what the logical and inevitable manifestation is of this certain set of premises that have become predominant in left liberal cultural politics.
Huge lie, just lying through his teeth right now. What they would do is they would take those videos, yes, public domain videos, post clips of them or sometimes longer versions of them, and then call the people in the video groomers, as in they are trying to solicit sex from children. That was the narrative they were crafting. So then people would see that and directly associate people discussing issues surrounding LGBTQIA+ with pedophilia. And they would do it again and again, to the point that it was getting teachers fired from their jobs, to the point that it was getting people harassed, to the point that, like, they called the Trevor Project a grooming organization. The Trevor Project, an organization that works towards reducing teen suicide. Just unbelievably ghoulish. And he knows this, by the way. Like, no one can say that Glenn doesn't know this. We've all heard Glenn get called out for this to his face. So he knows this. He doesn't care. He's still going to keep parroting and regurgitating a right-wing talking point. And the really shitty thing here is that I don't think Brianna Joy Gray knows enough to push back on this. It's going to be the same thing as Crystal Ball. It's going to be like, oh yeah, I mean, it may be a little bit mean to post all these videos of other people, but at the end of the day, it's just them being cringe, right? It's just a cringe highlight compilation, and it's not. And if it was, I wouldn't care. Do you think I do, like, I spend time making threads about anti-SJW channels? Because there's hundreds of those. There's so many YouTube channels where all it is like, whoa, look at this, another, like, lefty, blue-haired social justice warrior soying out, look at the soy. It's like, cool, have your fun. When you do that and you intentionally lie that the person in the video is a pedophile to the point where they're either going to get death threats or fired from their job, that's a very different thing. And that distinction and the fact that Glenn is lying about that is absolutely ghoulish.
I think that's what Taylor Lorenz is, you know, she isn't just a woman working on her own. She's a woman who was hired by and published by and defended by huge media corporations, which obviously, at least to a certain extent.
Oh, it says, aren't videos in TikTok not published into the public domain? Well, when he says that, I don't think he means it in the sense that they have no copyright. I think he just means that, like, it's strange that he's wording it that way, but yeah, they're published publicly, is what you could say. Do you have a right to repost people's copyright content? Not without, it doesn't become fair use until you manipulate it somehow, or you provide critique or criticism on it, right? So I guess the closest thing to an argument you could make is that the critique or criticism in question is falsifying that these people are pedophiles. So there might be something there in terms, like, that would be beyond my, bird law minimal expertise, but they're still not even manipulating the videos themselves in question. They're just reposting people's videos and then adding the text at top, look at this groomer. Here's a groomer grooming kids.
Share the values that drive her work. And what she is a particularly vivid expression, just like those videos that Libs of TikTok finds and publishes.
I don't know what the teachers are doing.
Logical, inevitable expression of what modern day corporate journalism.
I mean, I think the Libs of TikTok account knows the dangers of a lot of what it was doing because it deleted over 2,700 of their tweets. And, like, they're all archived, luckily, but a lot of the worst ones, the ones that are just like, you know, straight up posting people's public information, phone numbers, stuff like that, those are all deleted now, as are a lot of the ones where it's just like, this person is clearly grooming, and it's just someone being like, hey, I'm trans and I came out, blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, there's still a few left on, though. And I use those as specific examples of the ones that she still thought were okay to post.
Has become. Most of her colleagues at the New York Times and the Washington Post hide it a little bit better. They're kind of more subtle about it. They're, you know, kind of more careful. She always kind of goes to the furthest extreme. She takes it always one step further and therefore becomes a valuable kind of magnifying glass.
And again, zero pushback, because this is the shitty thing, is that Brianna Joy Gray doesn't know enough about this. Just like, Crystal Ball didn't know enough to push back against Sagar. There's like, I would say, a huge amount of responsibility on the part of these hosts to have done even the bare minimum of research before bringing on someone like Glenn Greenwald, who is just going to parrot the right wing's talking points. That's all he's doing right now. Everything he's saying is exactly what every other person on the right wing has been saying about this.
Understand what the trends are within corporate media, what the trends are in left liberal cultural politics are. And that's why I think she's become relevant.
So I completely agree that she's right for criticism. You know, there's no argument that because she's a woman or because she's too young or all of those other kinds of things that she shouldn't be criticized.
Right. We're not in the 1950s anymore. Like, women are strong professionals. Young women can have, like, really important jobs, and therefore they should be treated the same.
I also do think that there can be a disproportionate focus still because of, you know, whether it's because of sexism, whether it's just because of the person's kind of a punch, you know, do you have a punchable face? You know, sometimes people attract certain kinds of ire. There can be a disproportionality, I think, sometimes in a kind of a personalization of some of the attacks that happened with respect to Taylor Lorenz, which stopped me in my tracks because there will be moments where I want to be critical or substantively of her journalism, but it almost feels like I don't have space to because, it's,
But are any of you going to be critical of Libs of TikTok and what they were doing? Like just publicly posting people's phone numbers, addresses, posting videos of teachers saying that they're pedophiles, like none of that? There's zero pushback on that stuff. It's all... They've done a really good job of weaponizing this and making this all about Taylor Lorenz.
Maybe there is value in understanding how these images, even if we also find some of it cringe and some of it not necessarily in line with our personal values, is being used to rally folks to support a whole slate of policies that are directly targeting LGBT kids and the like across the country. I mean, can't both of those things be true? And is some of the focus on Taylor Lorenz as an individual distracting from what I think is that more substantive conversation?
See, this is what I mean when I think there should have been a bare amount of research done on the part of Brianna Joy Gray before bringing on Glenn Greenwald. The biggest reason being is that at the end of the day, she's now already bought into the lie that Glenn is posting here and regurgitating the right wing's lie in this, that all they were doing was posting videos of people and they're just like cringe videos. And it's the videos themselves that speak for themselves, not adding, no, they were also stating specifically that these people are groomers or pedophiles when they would post the videos. That is crucial to understanding this. That is such an important part. And if you just bring on Glenn Greenwald and he's going to be the expert in question where it's like, okay, what do you think, Glenn? Well, I think that while I may not agree with everything they do in their conduct, I still will defend that these videos were in the public domain, and because of that they were simply posting other people's videos. I don't really see how this is egregious in any way, right? It's not SJW cringe compilations, and it's so crucial to get the difference right.
So yeah, there's a lot in there that I think is interesting and important. As far as the Libs of TikTok account is concerned, and again, the reason we're talking about it and we are assuming our audience knows about it is already a tribute to what she's done. Just like I find it a little bit oddly demeaning, even though I know it's not your intention at all, of Taylor Lorenz's talent and skill to say she's not that important that she deserves all this attention. I actually kind of think she does. She's oddly pioneering in her own way. And, obviously I am a polarizing figure. You're a polarizing figure. We get a lot of attention for our work. And I think there's a reason for that. I think our work, your work and my work, in some ways that are similar, but more different, by the way, is still open for the last 20 years, more or less alone, who works at the New York Times, is because, but it doesn't make them unimportant, about what schools should be doing in terms of what you teach kids, what you talk to children about, at what age you talk to them about, and how you talk to them about it. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I probably wouldn't have cared. Now that I'm a parent, I care a lot more. I think about it a lot. When my kids come back from school and tell me what their teacher said, I'm very interested in it. I'm very attentive to it. I'm very concerned about it. I think it's a normal thing for parents to care about in terms of like, what is the state through public schools communicating and transmitting to our children and at what age? And do we want that? Do we not want that? And this account was shining a light on important parts of these debates that were kind of remaining hidden when you had teachers who were saying, hi, my name's Mix Smith, MX Smith. I'm non-binary. I'm a preschool teacher. And I went in today and I told my 3-year-olds that the reason you call me Mix and not Miss or Mister is because most people are neither boy nor girl. And we're going to play a game in which you decide, are you a boy? Are you a girl? Are you something else?
And then the Libs of TikTok account would post that video and call them a groomer or a pedophile. Do you realize how dangerous that is? You can't keep saying that it's just trans people talking about LGBTQ plus issues and then getting lit up because it's cringy. It's people being falsely accused of being pedophiles or groomers by this account en masse. Like, I got retweeted by this account. I know how many people on that account are just foaming at the bit to go after trans people. Because I'm a cis person. So even as a cis person, all of them are like, how dare you,
and then we're going to use the pronouns that you want. And my kids were so grateful. And a boy who was a boy stood up and said, I feel like a girl. And I said, okay, well, now you're she. And, whether or not that stuff should be happening in the public schools, I think is a real question.
Yeah, I know, Peter. I know Glenn gets it. Because again, there's evidence that Glenn's been told to his face at this point about what the truth is. And so he's just willing to keep regurgitating the right wing's lies on this. And I thought this was supposed to be about Elon Musk, but it's 10 minutes and they're still talking about, or spreading lies about Libs of TikTok.
A neutral account. It's not someone just saying, here's reporting on what craziness is going on TikTok.
Who's neutral?
Well, sure, but her point is that there is an articulated agenda here, right?
For sure.
And it's worthwhile for people who are consuming the content to know that this is part of an articulated agenda. So to your point, Glenn, you and I feel like about 120 years old when we were talking about some of this culture war stuff because of how quick the pace of change has been. However, the same people who are sitting around are saying, well, okay, maybe I agree that some of this stuff is beyond what I would want my kid to learn in school. in the same context of that account, there are folks that will say teaching kids that there are parents with households with parents of the same sex is a normal thing. You know, your kids could go to school and have a teacher tell them, no, family is between a man and a woman and anything else is illegitimate, and come home and say that to you. And there are a lot of people who want that to be the case, and including, I'm sure, plenty of posts on Libs of TikTok that think it's cringe to even.
By the way, it's a massive straw man to think that there's anyone on the left who's trying to advocate for people in kindergarten to grade 3 to be taught about sex by their teachers. That no one has advocated for that. No one's even talked about that. It's the fact that they've said that you cannot discuss sexuality and gender. Gender is not talking to kids about sex. So you can't discuss gender, which means, well, you can't say, hey, by the way, I happen to be married, or I have a husband, or I have a wife, I'm a boy, or I'm a girl. None of that. I mean, that would just eliminate the ability to speak about any of those things. And there were people online, too, who were like, well, yeah, but I mean, how often do teachers talk to their students about, like, you know, gender and stuff like that? And even if that's the case, sure, fine. But also eliminating their ability to ever answer a question, to ever say something, to even be like, oh, by the way, please refer to me as like they, them in the classroom. Well, that's gone now, right? I'm sure if you said that, there'd be grounds for teachers to fire you. And in other states, there's teachers getting fired for things like rainbow flags and rainbow stickers. Like they're actually afraid of refracted light. It's getting to that point.
Be telling kindergartners there's a such thing as same-sex marriages, same-sex families, same-sex parents. But sometimes you have a daddy and a daddy, or a mommy and a mommy. And so how do you untether that? I mean, because at the end of the day, it's that kind of a narrative coming out of Libs of TikTok that is being used to fuel stuff like the, you know, don't say gay bill or what have you. And do you feel any ambivalence about defending? I mean, I know you don't, because you're a First Amendment warrior, and, you know, we've talked about this all the time. But how do you negotiate that? Do you not see there as being reporting value on the fact that that's how Libs of TikTok is being used, even if you believe in the right of Libs of TikTok to exist?
For sure, I feel ambivalence. You know, I just said to you a couple minutes ago, and I've said this in every context in which I've appeared talking about this issue over the last week, and there were many, that while I was supportive of that account at the beginning, when it was really confined to just sort of saying, look at this.
He retweeted the account as of a week ago. A week ago. This does not hold up to scrutiny, Glenn, in the slightest.
Look at what's kind of happening in the underbelly of left-wing cultural politics. Look at what its destination is. And then it started to kind of shift into different directions, including instigating a certain kind of mob justice, which always makes me uncomfortable, inciting people to call school districts and demand the firing of people who are publishing these videos, focusing a lot on crimes in the kind of standard manipulative way of like showing a particularly gruesome crime scene and playing on people's emotions, just like the media is doing now in Ukraine, where they show dead bodies to try and manipulate emotions that then lead to policy support. It's always, I've never am happy with that kind of manipulation of even
I'm not happy with it,
I find a lot of what she does
but I'm fine with it.
Objectionable. So yeah, my ambivalence is clear. You know, it's so interesting, Bree, that
your
you talk about
ambivalence
the
is
issue
clear.
about what you teach kids
your
about.
ambivalence is
none
very
of these
clear.
Debates are new. When I lived in New York in the early 90s, when I was going to law school at NYU, the big controversy was there was this book called Heather Has Two Mommies, and there was like another book, similar one. I think
they've
about.
already moved on. God damn the spin. All right, so is Elon even brought up once in this?
Do you like Libs of TikTok or not? Do you think the political outcome of her Twitter account is positive or negative? The issue was, should gigantic media organizations owned by the world's richest man or second richest man, depending on how you count, Jeff Bezos.
What do you think Fox News is, Glenn? Why does it only count when it's the Washington Post? Like, do the Murdochs not count? If Fox News is regularly platforming Libs of TikTok and giving them a voice when they want it, and letting, like, they let her call into the show and speak her mind, does that count? Is that a massive corporation? Is that a massive media corporation owned by a billionaire tyrant?
Devoting themselves not to confronting major power centers like the CIA and the Pentagon and Wall Street and Silicon Valley, but turning their direction instead to the citizenry, private citizens who have bad views. And I do think you can, of course, make an abstract, valid journalist.
That account, I think, is over 1 million followers right now. That is more than a lot of news organizations in Canada have on Twitter in terms of their reach. That is a massive online reach they have.
Argument that the identity of a person who has a social media account that gains a certain level of influence is of time to provide a comment. So they announced to the world this article was running hours before I said anything. In fact, the way that I found out about this article was when Ron DeSantis' press secretary.
I looked at the transcript for this video. Elon Musk's name does not appear at all. What? Billionaires must deal. The media. What? Musk was in the thumbnail. Brianna, did you clickbait me? Have I been clickbaited?
Extending and all of this stuff, like, how dare you harass her? And, you know, I'm inclined to say that's not harassment. He asked a polite journalistic question and moved on.
The Libs of TikTok is part of the alt-right media apparatus. Yeah, I mean, no matter how you want to put it, yes, an independent person is the one running the Libs of TikTok account. It has grown to the point where it is now such a size that it dwarfs certain media organizations, as well as the fact that it is backed up and regurgitated by the largest podcaster in the world, Glenn Greenwald, whatever you want to call his current form, and of course, Fox News. The fucking massive corporate Fox News. Like, holy shit.
I'm inclined to say that maybe we should feel comfortable protesting at whatever Congress member's house we need to. I'm inclined to say it should be the case that Taylor Lorenz can go and knock on people's doors and ask questions as part of the course of her reporting. And that it's also true that people can be critical of Taylor Lorenz, although maybe there's not the same journalistic interest in knocking on Taylor. I mean, unless they're
person she won, and she's now a member of the Congress with all the power that entails. Of course, people have the right to go up in public and ask her questions, even if it's not in the politest of ways, because that's what you do as a journalist or just a citizen. You have the right.
Still
the
talking
Pentagon
about
Papers,
Libs.
exposing the lies that the Pentagon told about the Vietnam War and Watergate, exposing crimes by the Attorney General and the Director of the FBI and ultimately the President of the United States himself. That was the journalistic ethos in which I was steeped, that you go and you challenge the most powerful, like the scariest, most powerful agencies. That's the kind of work I've always tried to do. I think increasingly these media outlets have come to see those power centers not as the ones that they exercise watchdog authority over, but that they work in
vulnerable young woman who, like I get that that's part of it. And that's why I want so badly for the two of you to be on the podcast.
The closest is 2554 when Brandon says billionaires are trying to invest in Twitter. All right. Oh, we passed it already. 2554. Here we go. Here's the moment we've been waiting this entire time for. Oh, no.
Glenn, but to go back to our earlier conversation about why is it that all of these billionaires are trying to invest in Twitter or post left accounts or whatever it is, I think whether or not you think Taylor Lorenz is doing this, there is journalistic value in investigating why it is, what is going on in these social media spheres, who is supporting that kind of work, and to what broader political ends, because we do live in a world where there can be as much influence, political influence, social influence, with respect to what's happening in these spheres.
So take that argument and apply it to this case. Other than this woman's name and the fact that she lives in Brooklyn and is a real estate agent.
Okay, and we're back. He just really wanted to talk about Libs and TikTok some more. I guess that was that's my takeaway from this entire experience. So yeah. Glenn Greenwald is parroting the right-wing lies, and now they have appeared on multiple programs, including Bad Faith, and Breaking Points too. It's really sad to see people, especially considered to be leftists, regurgitating what the right wants to parrot, which is just a falsifiable lie, a completely falsifiable lie. And I was talking about how good they are at it, but it makes it worse when they're not only good at it, but people on the left buy into the lie as well, because for some reason, I guess the free speech absolutism carrot is just too delicious and dangling before them and swinging back and forth, and just like, oh yes, well, I may not enjoy what the Libs of TikTok does, but ultimately it's just cringe. It's just, they're just posting cringe, and posting cringe isn't wrong, and so I'm going to go along with that, Hey. Someone asked, what is your take on Elon buying Twitter? My take is basically, actually no, I have to get better at my messaging now. I, for one, welcome our new Elon overlord, and like to remind them, as a trusted internet personality, I can be useful at rounding up people to toil underground in his racist, non-unionized factories, and implant chips into people's heads that will ultimately make their brains explode in Roblox. So I'm here for it. Please bring on Le Epic Big Chunkus 420 Dank Meme Fiesta. It will be Sonic the Hedgehog, as one would say. Thank you. That's my new take on the whole thing, and I'm gonna have to go forward with this henceforth. You will see a big change to my Twitter account in the future. It's just the new way. We have to accept the future. Everybody, get on board. The monkey murder chips. Just want to give you a wild piece of Canadian news, because this is related to Canada and America. Derek Sloan, a politician, says, I'm absolutely thrilled to announce that my friend, the legendary American conservative political strategist Roger Stone, a man whose name is synonymous with successful electoral campaigns, is joining our team as the senior strategic advisor for the Ontario Party. Cool. Now, what's the Ontario Party, you ask, and why isn't this fool in the Conservative Party of Canada? He got kicked out. He got kicked out of the Conservative Party of Canada. Yes, because it turns out he accepted donations from a neo-Nazi. Yeah, that's a thing that happened. Derek Sloan got kicked out of the Conservative Party of Canada for accepting donations from a neo-Nazi. So, good job, Roger Stone. Have fun. This seems right up your alley, I guess. And yeah, nothing at all to see here. So enjoy it. Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form. Available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Just, we are prepared to embark on a mighty jihad in your name. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your humble jester, attempting in vain to get you to laugh. To our valiant knights of the Round Table, Benji Arnie, Tech Tink, Scary Earthhuman, Tony, DM Rivera, Resident Scarecrow, Sir Nickus, Mayred, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruby Kelly, Brandon, Words Greenwood. It doesn't matter what I believe, it only matters what I can prove. Egbert Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Daniel Sutton, Coulter Smith, Jenna Tao, Quiet 185, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, The Tim Caucus, Multimondi, Trevbot, EXE, Brian Ephraim, Lemmy 101, Anthropophojack, Saren 42, Catherine, Ramona Costa, Incosin, Agent NDN, Violent Orchard, Political Puppy, La Media Panza, Zach Christensen, Todd Buckingham, and Todd Lajeunesse. We raise our mugs and salute our brave heroes off to another glorious conquest.